Welcome to the Sound of Movement podcast. Today we are continuing our motivation, goals and mindset series, and we're talking about how we create goals and engineer a fitness strategy around our burning desire. This has been a critical component of my success and everyone that we've worked with.
Good morning, everybody. If we haven't met before, my name is Yanni Bormeister. Across the table from me is my brother Rad, and behind the mixer is Richie, the voice of God. We are Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System. We turn driven people into athletes. Big shout out to everyone tuning in on the podcast. Big shout out to everyone watching the replay on our YouTube channel. If you are, smash that like button and give us a review on the podcast. It definitely helps us grow, helps our channel. And leave a comment if you are into setting goals and what goals you're going to set for yourself in 2021. Now, I want to give a big warm welcome to everyone joining us from the UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. If you haven't already and you're watching on the YouTube channel or listening to the podcast, get yourself over there, apply to join the group and join the live discussion. It's lots of fun, just like Sasha from all the way from Germany and Dave Clark. How are you guys? And anyone else who's tuned in, let us know who you are and where you're tuning in from. And also today, question of the day, what goals have you set for yourself in 2021? We want to know, and we'll talk about them and we'll help you unpack them today. Today we're going to share how we do it here in Unity Gym, because it's very, very important to set goals, but the research indicates that it's more important to build a strategy around those goals. And this raises the chances you're going to achieve the goals by a massive percentage. I was going to get the percentages up because I've got all the research, but I didn't. So you're just going to have to bear with me. What I do know is that when you wrap your goals with a strategy that supports them, that unpacks them, that engineers them, and then you attach accountability, you get an accountability buddy or a group or a tribe like we have at Unity Gym or in the UMS system, then it raises the chances of success by a staggering 76%, which is absolutely incredible and something well worth doing. Now, we're going to show you how to do that today. Let's start, though, by sharing a personal story. We love telling stories here at Unity Gym. And this one is actually about Rad. Rad found the value in creating a fitness strategy and now is probably one of the most methodical with his programming and his strategies out of all three of us, because of how much of a breakthrough he had doing this. A couple of years ago, maybe it was a year ago, he was striving, and he'll give you the finer details in a sec. He was striving for calisthenics goals that he'd been working on for a few years, and he really had hit a wall. He hit a plateau. He wasn't getting anywhere, and he was quite disillusioned when some of the skills that he was working on, Richard and I, seemed to be a little bit better at without much practice.
Not a little bit better, infinitely better.
Infinitely better. There you go. I was being kind. And he ended up having to go back to the drawing board and really, really look at what he was doing and challenge why he wasn't as good at certain things as Richard and myself. And the only difference was that Richard and I had spent a much longer period of time working on our strength, our raw strength in the foundation movements of the UMS program. Things like bench press, deadlift, squat, overhead press, chin up, pull up, and that really caused Rad to sort of have a think about it. And together we built a fitness strategy which actually pulled him away from his calisthenics training momentarily, temporarily, which is something we do often with tribe members here at the gym. And we convinced him to invest some time in just building strength and structural balance. So Rad's going to share with you exactly how he did it, what that meant, and how he put his fitness strategy together, and the results that he got in the end.
Well, the first thing that I'd say is that to talk about for a short period of time, a moment of time, that was a year. So what we call a short period of time, a moment in time, was actually a year. So if you say to people, most people, this is your goal, but what we're going to do is actually work on this thing that you think has nothing to do with your goal, but it's going to get you there for a year. For most people, they wouldn't do that. But I've been training for so long that I know that I know that I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I've learned the hard way that you cannot rush the process. All you can do basically is identify your weak links and turn them into strengths. And sometimes that takes 6 to 12 months to do. And I would also, the next thing that I would say is, I don't think it was that you and Richard focused on strength more than me. I think it's that you and Richard focused on bodybuilding, on hypertrophy more than me, because I did focus on strength. But you guys both went through a long period of your time where your training, as far as I can tell, and as far as what I've heard you guys say, was focused on building muscle.
Yep.
And I never did that. I actually rejected that. I had a very, and I'll be big enough to say, I would argue that it was the same reason why you didn't stretch. You and me have both been competitive with each other, and we both believed that we were doing things the right way and that we tried to do things very differently to each other. And when I saw you doing bodybuilding and building muscle, I just didn't want to be a part of it. It wasn't for me. And I found ways to justify in my mind that bodybuilding wasn't the right way to train. And so I never did it right through my 20s. Never did anything that had any goal to ever build muscle. And which is one of the reasons why my legs are so strong, because during that I was putting a lot of work into my training, but my training was all around building ability in Kung Fu. And in Kung Fu, there's a lot of leg work that you do. It's all about building this leg strength and endurance.
Can I just interject here for a moment and interrupt you? I 100% agree with what you're saying, and I didn't really think about it this way, but because bodybuilding has such a strong culture, and it's sort of like this, you're a bodybuilder, there's this notion that you're either a bodybuilder or you're not a bodybuilder. But now that I think about it, and you're reminding me, all of Charles Poliquin's programs, when we were learning from Charles in the PICP Institute, you did a general preparations phase, which was 9 to 12 weeks. 3 program phases of either 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And then you did a muscular hypertrophy phase after that. And I remember when we first started learning from Tony Battagia, he did the same thing. He would have adopted it from Charles. And the reason for that was that laying down a little bit of new muscle tissue, a muscle size, then when you go to an intensification phase, which is strength-based, it just amplifies the amount of strength that you can develop in an individual. And I completely forgot about that. And that's something that is really, really important. Like, although Richard and I probably spent years training for muscular hypertrophy, but I always undulated periodization models, which was usually intensification, accumulation. But I usually did 2 bodybuilding phases for every strength phase. But it was still undulating. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I just never had the desire to do it, because I went through periods where I did it. At Fitness First, I did it with you when I got out of the army for several months. But I always, I'd do it for a period of time, and then I got really bored with it, and I just couldn't associate building muscle with my goals. It just didn't register that it was something that needed to be done.
Yep.
I was always just looking at my goals being around movement and around skill, and I just thought that, why am I doing this weightlifting and trying to build muscle? I want to move. And there's a lot of examples of people that don't have a lot of muscle mass on them that are doing really amazing calisthenics feats, and who knows why that is. I can't tell you why. Some people are just gifted.
I can.
Maybe
they imprint in the muscle and the nervous system as children.
Yeah, maybe.
You look at the Eastern Bloc guys who are in Russia and stuff like that. They're doing that from youth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I don't know what everybody's story is, and maybe there's some people that are going to say, oh, I've got my mate who started, and I've seen people that started later on in life that did certain styles of training that don't have a huge amount of muscle mass that can still do some pretty impressive calisthenics feats that I can't do, but it didn't work for me, and I'll just stick with that. I'll just say, for me, it didn't work. I put so much effort into trying to get good at the calisthenics movements, all the basic stuff, one-arm chin-ups, handstand push-ups, planche, front lever. I got okay at rings. I did a couple of decent gymnastics rings stuff, but I just couldn't get for the time invested. I didn't get the results that I really thought I should have. And I really got the slap in the face when I got my slap tear in the shoulder, in my right shoulder. That's what really made me go, fuck, this is not working. And what stood out to me was when I did the slap tear, I was working on a planche, and the planche being a pushing movement where your arms are in front of your body. I've always had a very underdeveloped chest, pec major, on my body versus the rest of the size of the muscles in my body. My pec major and my lats were always very, very underdeveloped, very weak. And because of the Kung Fu training that I did, it just makes sense, because swinging a sword around, swinging a staff around really gets those deltoids firing up, but not a lot of pec going on there. So that's the way my body developed. And it just really made me realize, for the first time ever, I thought, I really just looked at the way that you guys could so easily do these movements and then I started looking at the people that I look up to online that are better than me, and every one of them has a highly developed pec muscle. They all have a great physique. Like, that's a part of it.
And most of them train like bodybuilders for a period of their life. Ido, Joachim, they're people that come to mind.
Yeah, that's right. You know? Yep, that's right. Yep. So then I thought to myself, well, fuck, maybe I have to accept that having large muscles, it just sounds so stupid.
Well, larger. They don't have to be huge.
Yeah, that's right. But larger, like large enough that they're big enough that you've got the mass to be able to produce the movement that you want. And of course, it just makes total sense. It's so stupid to think that I would have ever thought otherwise. So that's when I came to you and I said, all right, Yanni, what should I do to make my chest bigger, to grow muscle in my chest? I'd never done it before. I'd never thought to myself, I'm gonna do bodybuilding, And it's not that I was doing bodybuilding. I was still doing the UMS, absolutely, because I was still doing strength and flexibility. I was still following the bent arm, lower body, straight arm split that we do. And you told me,
focused on the basics.
But I focused on building muscle, and of course I didn't just do my chest. I focused on pushing and pulling. So I focused on building chest muscle and building lat muscle.
You focused on the areas that you were most weak.
Yep.
And
it worked. You can see, because I was doing it during this year, so you could actually see a part of that in the at-home workouts programs that I was doing. You could see me build muscle in my body over those 12 weeks. If you look at week 1 of phase 1 versus week 4 of phase 3, you can see a difference. I was 6 kilos heavier there.
And just quickly, I don't want to go, I think we've framed it enough. I don't want to go, because I do want to explain.
But anyway,
exactly
but the point is, I am now a hell of a lot better at calisthenics. I can do all of the basic calisthenics stuff that I was working on a lot better than I could do before. And now that I've created this strategy around fixing the weak link in my body, now when I train and now I am doing calisthenics work, I'm actually activating my chest more.
Yeah, you said that the other day.
Yeah,
you can feel
I can feel it, and you can actually see it. I'm not doing bodybuilding training now at all. I am doing strictly calisthenics training, but my chest is hypertrophying still. I can see it in the mirror when I'm training. I'm like, wow, Jesus, I'm really built, because I've taught my body to use those muscles efficiently and to be part of the movement. So yeah, it really worked. It worked for me.
And so what that looked like on a sort of programming model for Rad, it changed everything he did, and even to the extent where it changed his nutrition. We were very much both proponents of intermittent fasting. And up until last year, Rad was doing a time-restricted eating, usually a 16-8, or maybe even an 18-6 time-restricted eating regime, meaning he was abstaining from food for 16 to 18 hours a day and only having a little bit of black coffee in that period, or black tea. And then he was refeeding during a 6 to 8 hour refeed window and spacing his protein consumption out throughout that period to maybe 4 doses of protein, both solid and liquid meals, meaning protein shakes. And he completely changed that this year when he made his focus to build some muscle mass, where he went to just consuming protein and calories throughout the day every 2.5 to 3 hours, to try and get up to 5 or 6 doses of dietary protein in, to increase his total dietary protein and calorie consumption to match the style of training he was doing, because that became his number one goal. His number one goal wasn't overall health and gut health and all that sort of thing that comes with time-restricted eating. It was to put on lean muscle mass. And so, his fitness strategy required looking at lots of different levels of his training and recovery. But it certainly worked, and it's just... the reason why I wanted him to share that story is because sometimes your fitness strategy will encompass doing things that don't seem like they're a direct reflection of your goals. Obviously we know as strength coaches that getting better at bench press is going to affect, and building some muscle mass is going to affect Rad's overall strength and capability. But for the average person, they might not. They might think, well, hang on a minute, and whenever we do this exercise with people, we say, okay, every fitness strategy we encourage here at Unity Gym is a 12-month period. And let me just say, before we go into how it looks, you can do this for anything in your life. We call it a fitness strategy, but just take the word fitness away and it is a goal strategy. You set yourself a big, hairy, audacious goal, which, for the average person, we like to start at 12 months because it's just hard for people to get their mindset beyond 12 months. But I'll give you a little bit of insight, lifting the curtain. Rad and myself, and I'm sure Richard, we all do 3, 5, and 10-year goals. And myself, even with career and finance and things like that, I go right out to 50-year goals. So you can do it for any time period and any goal in your life. But I would suggest that you don't create a big, hairy, audacious goal that is in a shorter time period than 12 months, because otherwise it's not big, hairy, or audacious enough. And then from there, we reverse engineer what that looks like over that 12-month period. And it's very important to do that for a number of reasons. But most obviously, it's important to have stepping stones that you can achieve that are bite-sized chunks or pieces of your big goal, so that you know that you're moving in the right direction, so that you have tangibility on a month-to-month basis, so that it's not like, oh my God, I'm not going to see any really tangible written in stone result until 12 months away, because that for most people can become quite unmotivating. And remember, what sparks motivation, what ignites motivation the most is momentum or progress towards your goal. Happiness comes from progress, and motivation and happiness go hand in hand, So you need to now reverse engineer what your big, hairy, audacious 12-month goal looks like. And I like to, at a minimum, do a 9-month check-in, a 6-month check-in, a 3-month check-in, and then what success looks like in 1 month's time. And the 1 month time check-in is really just about a momentum check-in. It's like, am I moving, and am I moving in the right direction? And that's what we get our guys to do by default here. But if you wanted to, you could do a month check-in for every single month: 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, month 3, month 2, and month 1 if you wanted to. That's up to you, okay? It'd be a longer process of engineering there. But and that's sort of where the magic comes in, and that's where it helps to have a coach who's walked the path before you, who can kind of give you a little bit of feedback on, okay, your goal is to do X. Based on my experiences and the experiences of the people I've coached, you should be at Y by month 9. Wherever at month 6 and wherever at month 3, and so we know that you're moving in the right direction. I'd like to see you here in 30 days, and then from that point on, this is where the real magic starts to take place. We need to identify behavioral goals, little tiny bites that you can be sort of nibbling at on a daily basis to make sure that you're moving in the right direction. And they might be meal timing, protein consumption for the nutrition side of things. They might be workout scheduling in your daily calendar. How many times and how long a duration of those workouts. They might be the actual exercise program split of your movement goals. They might be for mindset stuff, the fitness strategy needs to encompass all areas of your sort of motivation, nutrition, movement, exercise. So you should have mindset stuff. If you've struggled before for motivation, or you've struggled with self-sabotage or self-doubt, then there's a very big probability that, like we spoke about yesterday, you need to reprogram your thoughts so that you wake up every morning and you are absolutely committed to your goal. You're not doubting whether you're going to achieve it, And so your daily behaviors might be meditation for 10 minutes and reading a set of affirmations that align with your goals, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. Because here's the thing, as I said, writing goals down is very important, and it's the first step, really. But if you just write your goals down, you do not achieve them. There was this myth of the Harvard study, the Harvard Business School study, where students who wrote their goals down whilst they were at Harvard, they reviewed years later and found that the people that wrote their goals down had achieved all of their goals and some, and apparently Dr. Gail Matthews of the Dominican University actually went in and tried to find that study, and there's no record of it. It never happened. It was fabricated during a speech by a motivational speaker. The name absolutely eludes me. It could be Zig Ziglar. And he basically just made it up. It sounded great, and then people took off with it, That study never took place, but Dr. Gail Matthews' research absolutely did, and she's been noted and cited in many, many other papers since then, that this process of writing goals down is just the first step. You then need to create a strategy for it, which requires reverse engineering that goal, just like we've spoken about now, with stepping stones and ways that you can measure success. And then you need to create accountability around it and what it looks like on a daily basis. How can you behave, because the majority of what we write down is what we call a lag measure. Why don't you explain the difference between lead and lag measures, because that's something that we found very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lag measure is something that you're looking at, which is a snapshot of results that have been produced, and it's a snapshot of what has happened up until this point. It can't be measured. It can't be manipulated at all in real time. And a lead measure is an example of something that you can manipulate in real time that is usually behavioral based, that affects your lag measures. So my favorite examples of this are the salesperson who has a $50,000 a month sales target. And to look at the fact that you've only done $27,000 in sales and you're 1 week away from your target, to look at that is called looking at a lag measure. You can stare at that screen and get stressed for as long as you want, and it isn't going to change. A lead measure would be a set of things that you can measure, that you can put in place to affect the lag measure. So a lead measure for a salesperson in this example could be that they do 100 phone calls every day, that every time they have a phone call before they do the next one, they stop and positively affirm what they're going to get out of the outcome. Another lead measure could be that they have a script that they've written, that they follow the script on the sales call. These are things that you can, if you look at your lag measure, you look at that $27,000, there's nothing you can do that's going to move that up by looking at it. The lead measure, you look at your lead measures and say, okay, well, I have to do 100 phone calls, I have to follow this script, and I have to think very positively when I do it. Those are things that right now you can say, well, shit, I better do that. And if you do that, it affects the lag measure. The other example would be weight loss, where you look at the scales. The weight that you've lost is the lag measure. You can look at the scale, you've only lost 5 pounds. Your goal is 20. Look at the scale as long as you want. Check it every day, and nothing's going to change. But the lead measure of not eating sugar, not drinking alcohol, going to bed and getting 8-9 hours sleep every night, all of the going to the gym every day. Those are things that you can get up every day, look at, and go, oh, I'm going to do that today. And you do the lead measures. Guess what? You're going to lose weight.
Yeah. So that's an easy example for people to get their head around, the weight loss example. And to give 3 really solid lead measures would be pack your own lunch, so you're not eating takeout burgers and chips and things like that. Pack a healthy, like salad and protein-based lunch. So you're preparing your food. Go to the gym and do a workout or walk 10,000 steps. You have to do one of those two things, and then have dinner before 6 o'clock and do not eat until breakfast. No dessert. So those are three really, really solid lead measures that if you follow every day, you will absolutely lose weight, and that's just a great example. And so what we need to do once we get to the very, very bottom of the fitness strategy, we've got our big, hairy, audacious 12-month goal. We've got our stepping stone check-ins that we know if we tick off along the way, we are heading in the right direction. And the time frames aren't always going to be accurate, and the stepping stone check-ins aren't always going to be hit. But as long as we get close or we're moving towards that, you can make adjustments along the way. And
Well, what happens as well is that when you start this stuff, it is a lot of work because you're changing. We spoke yesterday about behavior and thoughts and dogma and all of that. You're changing all of that by doing this. Like you're replacing yourself. You're upgrading your operating system, like what we spoke about yesterday. If you didn't listen to yesterday's podcast, check it out. So it is very hard to do that at the start of the process. It's like that analogy that you always use, launching a rocket to the moon. You use 95% of the fuel to break the Earth's atmosphere and only 5% to make 99% of the distance, which is to get to the moon. But now, like where we're at, I'll talk about it with my training. For me, that's a really important part of my goals. With my training, one of the first lead measures that I set for myself, like I've got all these lag measures about goals that I want to achieve that, I can see how close I am and I can see that I haven't achieved them yet, whatever. But my first lead measure, one of them was that I was going to train every day, that no matter what, I was going to train every day. And of course, it doesn't matter if I'm having a good day or a bad day. It doesn't matter how shit I feel. Like last week I was sick all week and I had painkillers and I had Panadol and I trained every day still because I made the decision that I wasn't going to let sickness stop me from moving forward. That is going to move me closer to my goal no matter what. The other thing that I've said to myself at the start of this year was that I was going to track all my progress. I was going to have a program card and I was going to measure everything that I did. So that again moves me closer to my goals. So there's all these little things. Now, when I started, I had to write all this stuff down. I had to think about it. I had to strategize it. I don't have to do that anymore. It's all just become habit, these lead measures have become a habit, and I just know if I'm not doing anything, oh wow, I didn't do that today. That's going to take me further from my goals, So it is a lot of effort when you start, but it becomes autonomous, becomes an automatic process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just something that I don't know how I would have ever achieved any of the success in my life if I hadn't have done this stuff. Like I do this every year for my entire life. Like I do it for my finances. I do it for my relationships. I choose 5 key areas. And I remember it was one of our mentors, Sean Greeley, who made the definitive number in my head that you can't work on more than 5 areas of your life at one point in time. He talked about the fact that life is you're like an orchestra, and it's not a crescendo all the time. So you sort of work on little you're working on areas,
but
the
strings,
that's right.
Brass section,
but you can't do more than 5 at once. Otherwise, you do a really crap job, a mediocre job of all of them. And so I choose 5 areas of my life. And when we go really deep on this, when I used to do this as a coaching course, I would start by getting people to list all the things they value in their life, and that usually starts to get to around 10 to 12 things that people really value in their life. And we call it the values wheel. We'd spread that around a wheel, and we'd give ourselves a score out of 10 on how we feel like we're performing in each of those areas. And, to give you an example, for me, family is a big value of mine. Health is a big value of mine. Wealth is a big value of mine. Education is a value of mine. Exploration or travel is a value of mine. I love traveling the world and exploring new destinations. Spirituality is a value of mine, and the list goes on. Intimacy and my relationship, my community is a value of mine. I think I'm at 8 things there now. And it gets to 10, I like to get to 10 really strong values. And then I score myself out of 10 in each of those, and the lowest scores are the things I work on this year. And then I pull those 5 things into a plan, into a strategy, and I do exactly what we're talking about here with a fitness strategy. I do as a goal strategy. I set myself a goal that I want to achieve by the end of the year in each of those areas, and then I reverse engineer that. And I usually do it over a page, so that the whole strategy would be 5 A4 pages. I do this over the holiday break, over the Christmas holiday and New Year's break, so that by the 1st of January, I literally write my plan. And I write my plan in a way that it's a one-pager. It's a one-page report that has the 5 areas and then a couple of bullet points in each of those areas, so I know what my stepping stones are. And then from there, I rewrite my affirmations. I rewrite my daily affirmations so that there is a command or a line or an affirmation that supports every single one of those things. The behaviors, the mindset, the belief structure, everything that I think I will need to think about and behave like and be the person to achieve all of those goals. So I've got 2 pages by the end of all this. I've got the goals on one page, the plan, and then I've got my affirmations page on the other. And that I review every single morning of the year. I go quickly brush over my goals, see how I'm tracking, and then I go and read my affirmations, and then I do a 10-minute meditation, usually before all of that, to just get my mind in the right frequency, my mind open to really taking it all in. And guess what? I do the same process for our business. We do the same process for our business. We go through this sort of process of brain dumping and breaking apart all of our goals and strategies. And it's a very, very powerful exercise. And you know the most bizarre thing? Almost everything I've put on my personal goals, I've achieved some way or another. The universe seems to just conspire to get me there. And it's usually through means and ways that I never expected, you know, but you get there, and it's really quite powerful, and it's something that I urge everyone to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Guys, we are gonna have to bring this in for a landing today. Big shout out to Christy, Dave, Lee Clements, Diane Norbury for joining us and saying hello in the stream, in the chat. Diane saying super interesting ideas today. Good to hear some different strategies and perspectives. Yeah, look, I mean, none of this has been made up by us. It's all stuff that we've been taught to do by a variety of different people, but it really, really works. It's the way that I got myself out of a horrible financial situation. It's the way I got my relationships to a higher level. And it's certainly the way we've got the business to where it is, you know. So I urge you guys to take a serious look at it. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how we do, how we really get our mindset aligned with our goals, how we get our thoughts, feelings and emotions aligned with our goals, so that the behaviors are going to get us there, are going to align and help us get there. And it's very funny. I had a session yesterday with a psychologist, with a counselor that I'm working with in my relationship with my fiance, and she went through all the science of this, and it was totally random. She didn't know that we were doing podcasts about this right now, but she went into a lot of the science. She's researched quite heavily. That almost fell off his chair. And yeah, it was really interesting to sort of have that happen whilst we're doing this series with you guys. I'm getting it reinforced from different angles and different people in my life. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Richie. Quickly say hi.
Hey, guys.
Thanks, Rad, for sharing your story. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you guys.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.